Facilities Committee meeting for Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 to order. Let me lead us in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and Father, we thank you for the opportunity we have to serve the residents of Glynn County. Grant us wisdom, Father, and just help us to do things that bring glory to you. Thank you for this wonderful area we're able to live in. Help us take care of it. And we just pray that everyone be safe and just help our country to be healed. Pray these things in your Son Jesus' precious name. Amen. Amen. There's no public comment period, so we will go to the approval section. We got number one is the minutes from the March 17th, 2021 Facilities Committee meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I will move that we approve the minutes as submitted for the meeting of March 17th.
I'll second that motion.
Motion second. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the pump station 4116 contract award. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. We issued an invitation for bid on Friday, February 21st for upgrades to the wastewater pumping station and associated force main to support the new Glynn County Animal Control Shelter and, of course, the existing EOC and law enforcement offices out there. So we're looking at a new precast concrete wet well, new electrical shed and SCADA components, new pumps and discharge piping, and a section of force main. We received 3 bids on this. And this one we did not have very much of a spread on. So the low bid was Southern Civil at $498,499, with the high bid being $499,000. So this is a 120-day contract. The next item on our agenda today is a memorandum of understanding with Glynn County. Glynn County is funding this project, essentially like we do the joint projects with the city right now.
Right.
The city pays the money and then invoices us for our portion. What we'll do here is we will fund the money and then invoice the county for the work, and they will pay us back as a monthly invoicing process. So the recommendation is to enter into a contract with Southern Civil for the $498,499, which is pending the MOU approval next. And then we would pay for this out of the R&R and be reimbursed. It will not be a named capital project number because we're not the ones actually paying for it.
Can I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll move that Facilities Committee recommend the full commission enter into a contract for Pump Station 4116 rehabilitation and force main upgrade project with Southern Civil LLC in the amount of $498,499, pending execution of an MOU with Glynn County for reimbursement of the project cost.
I'll second the motion.
I have a question.
Okay.
We have a unit price listed for each of these, and I understand that we've done this quite often. Is there any concern, or is our confidence level very high that the number of units put into the project plan is going to meet the need, because we're very close to the agreed to amount
Right.
maximum?
We are confident that the unit quantities are accurate. Certainly, now with the MOU coming up in a minute, the $500,000 was put in there, but there is ability, if for something came up, we'd have to get approval through Glynn County again for them to fund it, but we could add additional to that MOU if necessary.
Okay.
I have another question. On this project, is it the opening of the animal shelter that prompted us to have to do this upgrade?
That is correct, yes, sir. Now, currently, in a storm situation where there's 100 people at the EOC plus everything that's going on, it's temporarily over capacity, but under normal conditions it's not. But with the addition of the animal control facility, it would be permanently over capacity.
Which is why the county has agreed to pay for it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Now, the county has not approved the MOU yet. That's why we have the pending in this motion.
Understood.
So what are the upgrades consisting of?
New wet well, new pumps, new panels, new discharge piping, and a section of the force main to get out of the station out to the right-of-way, correct, Mr. Klein?
So we have an existing pump station, building a new wet well.
Right.
Abandoning the old pump station, is that
Yes.
what we're doing?
Yes, sir. is the old wetwell going to be used as a receiving manhole?
Converting it to a receiving manhole.
Kind of an anthill shaped setup out there right now, so there's very little way to actually increase capacity without basically redoing the whole station.
And can this station serve some other people later on
Yes,
if
sir.
we have growth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any other questions?
None for me.
Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. Next item is memorandum of understanding with Glynn County, Pump Station 4116, Public Safety Complex. Mr. Dominy?
Yes, sir, and as Mr. Burrows said, we also have before you an MOU with the county for the public safety complex infrastructure improvements. Of course, it is a SPLOST project. The JWSC improvements to be made by JWSC and reimbursed by the county, as mentioned, consist of rehabilitation of 4116. JWSC will pay the contractor directly for the expenses and be reimbursed by the county. The maximum reimbursement amount, which the JWSC is entitled to recover under the MOU, is $500,000 unless there's additional change orders approved by the county. And as mentioned, it has not been approved by the county, but we believe it will.
We have a motion.
Hereby move that the Facilities Committee recommend forwarding the memorandum of understanding with Glynn County related to the safety complex infrastructure improvements to the full commission for its consideration and approval.
A second. And a question, please. In regards to our agreement, it's a 120-day contract for the construction, if I remember correctly. And Mr. Dorminey, are we anticipating getting this MOU executed maybe a little more expeditiously than we have others, such that the contract could actually begin?
Yes, sir, it's my understanding it's going to be on their next agenda.
Okay. That's all I have.
No other questions, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the Bergen Woods Comprehensive Agreement Amendment. Mr. Dominy?
Yes, sir. This is an amendment to the comprehensive agreement that was entered into with Bergen Woods back in 2018. Since then, the JWSC and the developer have been working to make changes to the project. The two pump station upgrades are no longer necessary, and only the force main extension remains as part of the project. The comprehensive agreement outlines that the developer will fund and contract for the necessary improvements to the sewer infrastructure in order to provide for the capacity for the development. The developer will either pay for the project and allow the JWSC to bid and manage the project, or allow the JWSC to bid the project, and then the developer will manage the project themselves. In exchange, the utility will either reimburse the developer through applying an equivalent amount of credit towards future capital fees that would otherwise be due, or simply allow the developer to pay for the project or a portion thereof. Again, the project must be completed within 120 days from permitting.
Can I have a motion?
We'll say this amended agreement does include, if their costs exceed their capital fees, a 70-30 reimbursement structure. That was based off of a previously proposed master meter setup. As of last week, apparently now they're going individual meters, so there should not be any reimbursement because the capital fees should exceed the cost of the project. But that clause is still in there if it does.
I hereby move that the Facilities Committee recommend forwarding the amended comprehensive agreement with Hudson Oak Brunswick LLC to the full commission for its consideration and approval.
I'll second it, and I have questions. Given the scope of the project has changed, could we have just a thumbnail description of what's going to be done with the revised agreement?
Yes, sir. They will be intercepting the force main up to where the 4116 project is tying it off at the right-of-way. They will be coming from their property, go down underneath the spur into the gravity section. They will be upsizing that existing 2-inch force main to serve their development and plus the increased pipe size necessary to handle the animal control facility as well.
And why is the 2 pump station upgrades being eliminated?
The pump stations upgrades are not being eliminated. They're being eliminated by the agreement. If you recall, last year, or year before last, we did a second comprehensive agreement with Wade Journey Homes. They were going to build, I believe, 160 homes or something like that in the area. So they went ahead and paid all of their fees up front. And instead of Bergen Woods upgrading the pump station and then us upgrading it again for the Wade Journey people, we took that portion off of Bergen Woods, and we're going to do it all at one time with the capital fees that Wade Journey has provided. So that is a funded project in there, but it's just not being done by the developer anymore. It's because now it involves more than just their development.
Will their fees more than pay for the cost of the force main relocation?
When they go for individual meters, yes, sir, it will more than pay for the cost of the force main.
Will Wade Journey's fees more than pay for the cost of the pump station upgrades?
The way pump station pricing has come in, I don't want to commit to that, but it should.
Aren't we just adding pumps?
Pumps and panels. Maybe some wet well work.
Which is actually going to be using some of that additional capacity in those pump stations, right?
That's correct, and any capital fees that exceed the cost of the project, they will owe.
For the pump stations.
Correct, so let's say their capital,
Eliminating them from them.
that's correct, it will go into the capital improvement fund reserve. It won't go directly to that project fund, but yes, they will pay whatever the difference in their capital fees minus the cost of the project. We will have that funding.
In Bergen Woods, as I understand, it's a multifamily project. It's apartments?
They've
or
changed it to
townhome?
townhomes now.
To
It was
townhomes.
originally apartments, and that's why they were going to master meter.
Right.
Now they've changed it to townhomes so they can potentially subdivide and sell the townhomes.
Okay, so is there any part of their project that they could delay for any reason that would then cause a concern for getting the animal control facility on?
We need them to do this expeditiously, yes, sir. Because if it's 120 days from permitting approval, assuming that we're going to be pushing very hard to get the permitting approval shortly, because that will cause us problems.
The tap fees due, the total tap fees due under our new policy,
At the time of building permit approval.
but see, some of those houses might not be built right all the way now. If
The townhomes,
They're going to be individual houses.
they're going to be townhomes, so there'll still be units of 4 or 6 in one structure. So
But it might be more phased, so we might not get all that money up front.
that's correct. That is correct. We have sufficient capital improvement fees to do the project from other accumulated funds.
Okay, so under this agreement, are we going to bid and manage the construction?
We are going to bid, and then they have the option to manage the construction or just pay their fees and allow us to manage the construction.
Okay, so if they delay for whatever reason, can't get equipment,
Right.
or they just shelve the project for a period of time, we may have to go in and rescue it
Yes.
to be able to get the animal control project on target with their need date. Do we have liquidated damages specified to hold Bergen Woods accountable or their developer?
No, sir.
I have a concern about that because there's not enough teeth in the agreement, in my view, to cause them to execute their project timely enough. Given market conditions, I would think they would want to build it out pretty quick, but if they don't, for whatever their reasons may be, I see the potential for us to have to engage in completing a project that they may have started.
Have they indicated when, if they have any plans to start yet, or are they permitted yet? or-
They have solicited quotes from contractors, and it exceeded the bid requirements, so that's why they have to be bid out now. So they have design plans completed and are ready to go out for pricing.
Did they request this amendment? Or did we just come up with it?
They requested it to take out the pump station part since they weren't responsible for that
Yeah,
anymore.
it's necessary since the pump
But they'll
station.
still be using some of the capacity in the pump station.
Right, but they're not going to be the ones managing the pump station project.
So we really can't nail down a date that they're going to start, but on the other hand, since it involves other things with us, it's fair to say that there should be some sort of time frame involved in this agreement here, I would think. I think what Commissioner Duncan said is correct.
Yeah, it is 120 days from the receipt of the permits.
Right.
That's the time frame, but you're right, there's no
But
liquidated
that's,
damages.
that's the variable we don't know.
Are the force mains designed already? All the permits are received?
Permits have not been received for the force main work, have they?
What would be our alternative to this if the Bergen Woods development, again, I'm just assuming the worst-case condition, I don't want to get the animal control facility delayed under any conditions, because we've already approved it, and it's a joint project by us and the county to make it a success. And I see this potentially as a weak link. So if we have to go in and rescue the project, what would we have at risk to do that?
The main issue is going to be the section underneath the spur. We could put in temporary bypass along the right-of-way. It's the spur that's going to be the problem. So as long as we can get that section done in time, we could bypass short-term until they get the pipe installed. However, that is going to run into quite a lot of money to bypass that long of a force main.
Okay. I see that as
Right.
a point of leverage that needs to be considered. The other is the permitting from DOT. Has that been initiated for that application?
Yes, sir. They reviewed, yes, sir.
Okay. And do we have a general expectation of when the DOT might approve that?
I believe we're at approval. We just have to submit, get the permit. We have to tell them when the work is going to begin, so they issue the permit.
Okay, so that's not a
Shouldn't be
an
a
issue.
concern at this point, but that is a variable.
Understood being a variable, but are we saying that it's already been applied for, discussed with DOT, and we're simply, at this point, just saying, okay, we're ready to start construction, we can pick the permit up?
Correct. They're waiting for a start date, correct, but they would issue the permit.
Okay, sure. Okay, so that's not going to be a hindrance in terms of permitting then?
Is the force
Should
main
not
ready-
be.
Are the force mains ready to be bid?
Yes, sir.
And we'll bid those?
We will have to bid those, yes, sir.
I still see it as a concern. It's a very short project. I just want to be sure we're covered in our expense. If we have to go in and do a bypass for some period of time, I'd like for the developer of Bergen Woods to reimburse us for that. If they execute to their benefit and a mutual benefit for us in the county with animal control, then there's no issues. But if they fail, we have no leverage, in my view, over them, and we can potentially spend the money to get the project on track. And the funds we take in are come from our customers, so essentially our customers would fund that project. The portion that Bergen Woods development, their developer Hudson Oak, should do. So any thoughts about that concern?
We could certainly add some liquidated damages in there
Okay.
on that same time frame and make it equivalent to the cost of the bypass pumping.
What's the project cost estimate for the force mains?
I think the quotes they got were in the 200, 250 range.
I think it's close to 400.
Okay.
I think it's 400.
400, sorry.
The two they did get.
Okay. That's where I am. I think we should have liquidated damages. It gives us some leverage on them to recover cost. I recognize that we can go in and rescue the project. We'll keep animal control project on track. Won't be any risk to their schedule, but I'm thinking of recovery of our cost for the benefit of our ratepayers. So I would be more comfortable with having that in the contract with them.
Can we modify that to say any cost associated with allowing access for the animal control facility until the project is done will be charged as liquidated damages?
Yeah, we can.
Something of
figure out
that
a way to
nature?
word that.
Yeah, something of that nature.
What
What are we getting from them as far as tap fees to pay?
If they do individual meters, it's going to be $500,000 or $600,000. Is that correct? Is that the number y'all come up with this morning?
Right, correct. So we revised it with the master meter, they were at 217.6. Individual meters, they're at 508. So about $300,000 difference between master meter and individual.
Right, and that would be over a period of time of their development based on the market conditions and their sales.
Depending on if they phase it, right now they're showing
Right.
it as one development, one phase. So as it is applied for, they would present all capital fees
At the,
one time. They're ready.
if they're only do one phase, it'd be one commercial building permit, and they would,
Okay.
Instead of liquidated damages, could we just revise it to say that they would have to pay the $200,000 up front as soon as we take bids? Of their tap fees, they would just prepay the tap fees instead of paying them later?
if they would prepay the tap fees, and that's what we want to do, then we just had to get the drawings from the engineer, and they wouldn't really necessarily have to be a part of it at that point.
That way, we're in control.
Right.
I would support that.
From your conversations with them, is that an option?
I would assume so. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Makes it cleaner for them, certainly.
That way, we would just be, in the total cost of the force main, they paid the engineer, right?
Yes.
And the remaining tap fees they would need as a bill, they would just come on with the remaining tap fees.
That's right. You could do that. That would simplify the whole process.
Is that practical to consider? Charles, you could have that conversation with them later today or in the morning, and then it could be brought to the commission tomorrow.
Sure.
Then we, presumably, Chairman, we could execute it tomorrow at the full commission, again, assuming the commission would do such, and that would keep it on track, given.
Yeah, I actually was talking with them earlier today. They
Okay.
confirmed that it was on the agenda for tomorrow. I told them it's on the agenda today as well. So, yeah, we can definitely have that conversation. And
Yeah, I'd like to support moving it forward. I would just want to be sure that they've got skin in the game enough that if we rescue it, it's going to be reimbursed to us. So that's where I am with it.
right. So the two options would be either liquidated damages included in this contract or prepayment of the tap fees.
I could support either of those.
Okay.
I prefer prepayment of the tap fees.
Or prepayment of tap
I
fees.
don't want to get into liquidated damages if at all possible.
Okay. Sounds good.
That's just more legal work.
Yes, sir.
So what do we do with the motion then? Do we
We have to act on it.
We
We
need to
do.
withdraw the motion.
could table it?
Well, you can move it
We just-
forward, subject to those conditions.
Okay. All right.
Who made the motion?
I did, I believe.
You just want to amend the motion?
All right, yeah, I'll amend the motion to include prepayment of tap fees by the developer.
I'll second that amendment.
For the total cost of the force mains.
Force main total
Yeah,
cost?
prepayment up to the total, for the
Oh,
total cost,
okay.
Okay, all right.
You want to do that?
rather than
all right,
all
so-
of the tap fees.
Yeah, that-
So my modified motion is up to prepayment for up to the cost of the force main.
yeah.
Is that correct?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion carries.
All right,
Three to
that covers
none.
it. Okay.
Next item is Pump Station 4036 Gravity Basin CIPP Contract Award. Mr. Burris.
So we issued an invitation for bid March the 5th for cured-in-place pipe rehab for gravity sewer systems upstream of Pump Station 4036. 4036 is at the end of B&W Grade Road, right beside the Altamaha Canal. The segments we're talking about here are downstream of the 4105 and 4107 pump stations, and we knew this work had to be done before those pump stations were upgraded. Therefore, that's being funded out of that project. We got 3 bids. The low bid was Bionomic Services at $923,333.69. It is a 150-day contract, and this price is almost exactly what the estimate was. We got one right. So I estimated $940,000, so that was pretty close, and that was, this will be paid for out of the R&R funds out of the 4105-107 project. They're to be started soon there after 150 calendar days. Most of this is down by the railroad tracks, and some work out on the 341 corridor that we are working through some minor permitting issues with GDOT.
Have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend to the full commission enter into a contract for the Pump Station 4036 Gravity Basin CIPP rehabilitation with Bionomic Services LLC in the amount of $923,333.69.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and second. I have a question. Bionomics has worked with us on manhole rehabilitation, but they've not done any CIPP work for us.
They have done some CIPP work for us, yes, sir. It hasn't been for a couple of years, but they have done some in the past.
And does this have any manhole rehabilitation included?
There's no manhole rehab associated with this. After our experience on the last one we did, we're going to keep that separate.
Gotta keep that what?
We're going to keep that separate moving forward and do the lining first and then bring the manholes in after the fact, if we need to do that.
Do we think we're gonna have some manhole rehabilitation?
There'll be some manholes that need to be done on these segments, and that will be included in next year's manhole rehab contract. The annual manhole rehab contract we do, those manholes will be on that list.
Okay.
I have a question. Can you just kind of give us an idea of the kind of factors that go into making a decision about which one of the projects is a priority? I mean, I think I know, but I think also people don't understand necessarily what goes on in an engineer's mind. So maybe you could share a little bit about what pushes this project up to the front?
Well, we had the force main project coming from 4110, the SPOS project, that will be tying into these lines. These lines have been inspected with CCTV footage, and some of them are in need of attention. They're not an imminent failure situation, but before we turned another 2,000 gallons a minute through those lines, we looked at those segments, and we went all the way back to the upstream force mains from 105 or 107 and did those projects as well. So we have for CCTV and CIPP projects, we have a schedule to go through based off of a 10-year schedule to get through the system. And once we get through the system, we then score every single pipe in that basin on a 1 to 5 score. And there's a maintenance score and a structural score. So anything that has a structural score of 3, 4, or 5 is considered for CIPP rehab. And then we look at what the available budget is for the project and see how many of those we can get done. In this situation, we were able to get all of them that are 3, 4, and 5 structurally completed.
Okay. Yeah, and I understand that you have to prioritize because we, like all other utilities, have aging
Right.
As infrastructure, and we have 600 miles of sewer and 600 miles of water. So there are things we have to deal with as we come along. So.
And
Yeah.
this basin was one of the ones identified in the master plan as having significant I&I. So that is another driver for this project.
Good. I do have another question here on the bids themselves here. This is item number 18. There's a really large disparity in the amount of money allowed for open cut point repairs. And my understanding of those is that where other pipes join in and they have to.
If we got to a section where we tried to line it and For whatever reason, it didn't work because the joints were off. From video, it doesn't look like it's going to be a problem, but we always, for these contracts, put those in there for, we have a cost if it's necessary. So,
Okay, the low bidder is at $2,000, and the next bidder is 15, and the next one is 18. So is I mean, the low bidder anticipates fewer problems with this kind of issue?
I suspect that is what their
Okay.
thought process is, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Same way, items to 11 through 19 are as-needed items and are not necessarily
Right.
required to be in the
Yeah.
work done
Okay.
in the contract.
Yeah, because their numbers are kind of all over the place also in the bypass pumping, but I don't know what kind
Now, on
of,
the bypass pumping, I can tell you, the way Bionomics typically bids jobs is they distribute their bypass costs through the other line items.
right, okay.
Some of the other contractors appear to fully pull that bypass out and put it separate.
So whatever the adjustments they make, as long as we get to the end.
As long as we get to
lowest
the end
price.
with the number.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
For a job this size, will they bypass just manhole segment to manhole segment?
Yes, sir.
They won't go through two manhole segments at a time?
It depends on the location. If they're back-to-back and they can bypass it easily, they may do two segments at once. They'll do what they call a double shot and do it at one time. A lot of these segments, the cure time on one segment with these large lines is probably such that they're only going to bypass one segment at a time. Because the larger lines, they have to fill with hot water, and it takes about 18 to 24 hours to cure. So to try to do two segments like that would be a little more challenging.
And they included in the contract is televising
Yes.
the lines?
They clean it, pre-CCTV it, so we have preconditions, they line it, and then post-CCTV it to prove that they've made the changes necessary.
So we always have before and after.
We have before and after, yes, sir.
What type of pipe material is that? Those
Cast iron, ductile, and clay.
Wow.
So a little bit of everything.
Different ages in different segments?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The section down by the railroad tracks down from Rich Products is mostly cast iron. Once you get closer to the actual exit and north of there, it goes to ductile or clay, depending on when it was installed.
Any other questions?
No, none from me.
Have a motion second, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the ATS installation contract award. Mr. Burrows?
Yes, sir. FEMA we have entered into the agreement is with GEMA, a recipient, sub-recipient agreement with GEMA for installation of these 22 transfer switches. We issued a bid on Wednesday, March the 10th for the 22 switches, and they have a docking station attached to them with quick connects so that we don't have to hardwire generators in. Now, FEMA originally approved $58,762 for this project. We still do not have a great understanding of where that number originally came from. We have been in contact with them for over a year, telling them we're going to need a budget adjustment to do this job, and they have said bid it out, and then we'll take care of it at that point. We'll see what happens. However, we had 3 bids received. Y Delta Inc. out of Statesboro is the low bid at $773,085. The project is funded, it's a 120-day project. Project is funded out of Project 801, which has a $2.9 million remaining budget because we have to front the money and then be reimbursed. It is a 85% reimbursement. FEMA does 75%, GEMA does 10%. Right now, again, we're only approved for $58,000 worth of reimbursement, but we feel like may not get the full amount, but at least some more contributed to this project. But the way it's bid out, they're lump sum for each line item. So the recommendation is to approve the full contract amount dependent on the budget adjustment, and then if they do not give us the full budget adjustment, we will come back to you for a changed amount at that point. But again, FEMA has requested that we get bids and approve the full amount before we request the budget adjustment.
How long are the bids good for?
60 days.
And how long is it going to take us to get approval?
We have been in conversation with them for the last 24 hours, and my understanding is there's a phone call set up this afternoon to discuss this. So hopefully we'll have a decision very shortly.
See, this is the kind of project that's very obvious.
Yes.
Unlike some other ones, that, you know, this is good because if we don't have power, then we have generators that will do the work of,
And
with
these
that.
22 stations were actually selected because during Hurricane Irma, these were the 22 stations that we applied for reimbursement funds for work that we did during the storm, other than, additional work other than the labor hours and everything for normal, but that actually had damages during the storm. So that's where those 22 came from.
So if we don't hear from them before the meeting tomorrow, we don't need to take action on this tomorrow.
My understanding is that they will not give us a budget adjustment until we have approved a contract. So if they don't hear from them, then we have to, they're still not going to take action until we have approved a contract.
so we do have to approve that.
But the approval that's listed is dependent on a budget adjustment. So if they don't give it to us, then we would come back at the next meeting and reduce the scope to whatever amount they gave us to.
Were the bids set up so we could reduce the scope?
Yes, sir.
And that just eliminates some of them.
We just eliminate some of the stations out of it. The other option would be to do all of them, but not get reimbursed for whichever ones we don't get the budget adjustment for.
Did we have a project cost estimate for this?
Yes, sir. Our electrical engineer did the estimate, said $750,000.
So we're in the ballpark.
So with 22 stations, he missed it by $1,000 a station.
So do we have portable generators for all these sites?
We currently rent 5 portable generators and own 3. We are, with another FEMA-funded project, purchasing 5 portable generators as well. That is currently, that same engineer that did this one is currently putting together a bid package to get that put out as well.
And they're portable, so I mean, if need be, they could be moved, and with the automatic transfer switches, they can just be put
They
online.
can move, these transfer switches have the quick connect docking stations as well. So they have little cam locks on them. They're color coded. You put the red to the red, the green to the green, and I forget what the third color is.
And you're up and running.
You're up and running. So you literally wouldn't even have to drop the generator trailer off the truck to pump some of these stations down. You could go to them, hook them up, put the pumps on in hand, let it pump down, turn it back off, go to the next one in a storm event until
Right.
utility power was back up.
Okay. I don't think, we haven't done a motion yet, have we?
No, we need a motion.
I'll make the
You're
motion.
going to do it, okay.
I move the Facilities Committee recommend awarding contract for installation of 22 automatic transfer switches to Y Delta Inc. in the amount of $773,085 pending a budget adjustment from GEMA.
I'll second that motion.
And a question, please. While this budget amount covers all the electrical part, I must presume that the bypassing we do just comes out of normal O&M expenses.
Bypassing comes out of this. It was all included in the bid.
Okay, so when we have to pump down and all
For
of that.
for their
during the
purposes to
power's off.
install, everything is included in the bid.
Okay, I'm good.
What do they have to pump down to install transfer switches?
They won't have to, depending on the size of the station, we did recommend that they consider having bypass available during the process. Some of them, they may not have to do that on, but they were alerted that they were responsible for bypassing.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say something else and completely forgot, but the only thing we're responsible for providing is a generator to test them with. So we'll have one of our portable generators that once they get a station completed, we will take our generator out there to test.
So the actual downtime for the station is going to be fairly minimal.
Should be extremely minimal.
Okay.
And these transfer switches are equal to the transfer switches we have on other pump stations? Or do we have any transfer?
We have very few transfer switches at any pump stations right now.
We
So,
want to make sure we got the right fittings on these.
yes, our electrical engineer has done a thorough investigation of all of these sites.
Any other questions?
No.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is capital projects plan, fiscal year 2021, 2022. Mr. Burrows?
Yes, sir. Prior to last year, we used to bring projects individually for consideration of scope and budget. Last year, we created the 2020 capital projects plan and got a year's worth of capital projects approved at one time. The request is to do this again for the 2021 plan. They address water and sewer needs on the mainland and St. Simons. You can see the breakdown there, almost 50-50 between water and sewer, with the bulk of the money actually going to the mainland. And so the attached projects plan will go through the individual projects here. The Arco Water and Sewer Project was on the SPLOST list. That engineering is expected to be completed in April. That would be paid for out of the capital reserve, not the capital improvement fee reserve. There's that third reserve. That is a $3.5 million project and should be able to be bid out this summer. The Canal Road Water Production Facility, there's an existing fire well at Canal Road that would be converted to a production well similar to what we did at Ridgewood. This would be another Upper Floridan well. It's already, we have permitted capacity for it. That would require outside engineering. That is a $1.85 million project. We did the Ridgewood well for $1.5 million, so the $350,000 would be for engineering. North Mainland water loops, there's multiple loops we're looking at here. If you've, recently we've had major, I say recently, in the past year, we've had a couple of major water outages in the North Mainland because of a main failure, because of that system not being looped appropriately. So we were looking at 3 areas for potential looping: Kate Road to Old Jessup to New Jessup, and then the third one would be from Millennium Park, is that what it's called right there? Millennium Park, underneath the spur, and tie in right there on Perry Lane Road. So that way that will be fed in a looped fashion, so that if there is a main break, we can valve off at the main break, they can be fed from multiple directions. The Academy Creek loan and the meter loan, we have said, will be paid for out of R&R instead of out of debt service fees, so that is included in there. That is the full debt service for those 2 projects when it gets drawn down. Pump Station 4002 is located in downtown Brunswick. It is listed in the master plan as needing electrical improvements, and while we're in there, we're going to look at rehabbing the pumps or replacing the pumps and the bases and discharge piping systems that are needed there. It's a $650,000 project. Pump Station 4044 is in front of the old Payless shoe stores, which I think is a Breaks for Less now, on Altama. That station will be, this project will build a new station adjacent to that station. There's a bank right there that we've been working with of acquiring property. They currently have a grinder station, so if we put it there, their grinder station would go away. But that station is currently listed as over capacity. We aren't having overflow problems, but there is quite a lot of flow that comes through that station. So this was going to be done with an unsolicited proposal project. So the engineering is essentially done on this. We had to get them updated a little bit, but that unsolicited proposal does not seem to be moving forward. So that's why that one's listed at $550,000. Dunbar Creek, the engineering for the rehab of Dunbar Creek is on this list. The Dunbar Creek rehab itself was on the SPLOST list, but the request is to move forward with the engineering portion of that work and go ahead and get that taken care of. Priority Basin Clean and CCTV. This lists the 6 basins that were listed out as that have not currently got a project associated with them in the master plan as the highest sources of I&I in our system. 2005, 2007, 2008, and 2WTP are basins on the island between Devonwood Estates and Glen Haven, Black Banks area along Frederica. So those basins will be cleaned and televised, and then we'll go through those videos like we talked about previously and get the scores to see which ones need to be actually repaired. And then on the mainland, 4021 is a basin that's along Altama. We just did the work on the main lines that run parallel to Altama and some that cross under Altama, but this is to do the smaller lines that go back in some of those neighborhoods. And then 4035 we just did, again, the main lines on 4035, but this would be to do those side branches. It's about 78,000 linear feet of pipe that would be cleaned and televised. 4001 rehab is downtown near King and Prince. This is another one listed in the master plan as needing an electrical system overhaul and needs some valve replacements and the installation of a bypass connection, not a bypass pump, but a bypass connection. That's a $400,000 project. Highway 17 North Pump Station would be construction of a new pump station between Golden Shores Mobile Home Park and Cabana Court Mobile Home Park. This will be paid for out of the capital improvement fees. In-house engineering on that. Be a $400,000 project. Pump Station 3101 is on the South Mainland. It takes the flow from the port and all of those restaurants that are off the interstate there that come down. The Southport plant does not have gravity coming into the plant. There's 2 pump stations that pump directly to the headworks. 3114 handles the flow from the school and Buck Swamp Road and those neighborhoods in that direction. 3101 takes everything else. We've rehabbed 3114 2 years ago, but this would be to rehab 3101. This was also listed in the master plan. A Village Drive water main extension is a project to install a water main and fire hydrants along Village Drive from underneath Lawrence Road, that section across Lawrence Road, to, I believe, Virginia is the name of the road at the very end there. That would be paid for out of capital improvement fees, a $350,000 project. That $350,000 includes money if we have to repave because we can't stay in the shoulder. We think we can stay in the shoulder, and if that does occur, we'll be able to stub out along all the crossroads that come in on that project. We've had 6 or 8 property owners that have been interested in tying onto the water system in the last couple of years, so we believe this is a project we'll get quick connections on. And then another $250,000 for our multi-year in-house galvanized replacement project, which we've replaced almost 1.5 miles of galvanized pipe so far with that, and we are making steady progress through the old galvanized lines, and we've had a few people that have had to have their irrigation companies come out and adjust their irrigation meters because they started watering the asphalt once we got the galvanized lines out of there.
A little more pressure.
I think it's a good list of projects, but let me ask you, is there a priority on these projects? And what if we exceed our budget and we run out of money before we complete all the projects?
Well, yes, sir, that we could prioritize them in that way if you so chose. One thing to consider is the G4 loan debt service, the $1.2 million. All of that will not be due until the full loan draw is completed on those two, so in all likelihood, that $1.2 million will not all be required for debt service this year. But we budgeted it just to give us a conservative value.
I think this is a great roadmap for the future year here to give us a sense of what our priorities are and what we need to get done, so.
But yes, if you would prefer us to prioritize the list rather than list them in dollar value order, I could certainly do that.
I think it's already in your head.
It's mostly there, yes, sir.
Yes, I thought so.
I'll make the motion. I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend to the full commission approval of the 2021 capital projects plan as presented.
I'll second the motion.
I will note, there is a potential suggested schedule. All of these projects will be started in this next fiscal year, but some of them are longer-term projects, so they will not be finished in the next fiscal year. But you can kind of give an idea of what our project flow would be out of that. Some of them we'll have to do engineering procurement on, so that will take a little longer, so that kind of spaces out a little bit. But some of the in-house work we'll jump on pretty quickly.
So your suggested schedule here on the Gantt chart takes into account that we will outsource for engineering.
That for the ones that have to have engineering, yes, sir.
Right.
That is
So,
correct. And I've tried to be conservative with my timelines. I've been told that my timelines sometimes are a bit aggressive, so.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is Pump Station 4003, upgrades change order number 2. Mr. Klein?
Right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is change order number 2 for the Pump Station 4003 project. Change order 1, for a little history, was a time-only extension of a few days there with no added cost. This would be the second change order, obviously, and this is also a request from the contractor for time extension only with no additional dollar cost. Give you a little background. Joint order staff received a time extension request, which is attachment number 2 to the packet there, from Petticoat Smith, the civil contractors, in the amount of 50 days. That was their request. They cited cumulative delay days due to weather, challenges with materials delivery, and also labor issues due to COVID-19 pandemic impediments. And also there was a little bit of time in there with the pump and evaluation repair that we spoke about during last month's report. This request from the contractors for time extension only, no cost increase, dollar cost increase. Project is expected to complete within the budget, and we expect this would give them enough time to finish the project safely and per contract requirements. We did get a memo from the, oh, I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
you're good. That's what I was going to say.
Yep, we did get a memo from the engineer of record. The recommendation was to, they agreed with the request for time extension and endorsed it. Staff, we have noted an accelerated or improved effort of labor out there. We do believe they're trying very hard, working Saturdays, extended hours. Believe they're doing what they can to get done. Believe this time extension would allow them to complete the project. Good quality project, good quality product, safely. And what this would do, currently, the contract time is due to be complete a couple days from now, the 16th of April. This would move it on to June 5th. So that's what the additional time would do, June 5th. So we still have our pump station done before summer. I'll add that they are paying for bypassing. It's not costing joint water anymore. We're not delaying a project, so to speak, with this delay. All the cost that's assumed with this time extension does fall on them. So staff does have a recommendation there for consideration.
So there's minimal impact on our system at this point.
That's correct. That's correct.
Are we having to pay the engineer additional inspection because of this?
No, well, no, sir. There is, we would not. Any additional cost, of course, we would look to the contractor to cover. The engineer has not asked for additional. We do provide a lot of staff coverage of this, so we don't expect to have to ask the engineer to add any more additional time for inspections. We can cover. They'll still be available, and we still have budgeted for the milestones they need to be there for, the engineer of record. But otherwise, staff can cover this. And just one other thing to throw in here, this is per contract. There are liquidated damages per contract of $2,000 per day.
Yeah.
So do want to make sure the commission's aware of that.
Do we feel like, and the engineer feels like they're going to be able to complete it because they're just now starting the gravity sewer, which is a real hard line to put in?
They are in the gravity sewer, as you know, and point out, it is a difficult part of the project. They're in motion with that right now. Witnessed them excavating and got the trench box installed and everything for that first segment this morning. And the contractors firmly, or they're confident that this will give them the time to complete.
And I think they're also well aware that this is the last one of these that will be considered.
No more extensions.
So-
after this.
No more, right, correct,
that's it,
correct.
yeah.
They understand that.
Right. I move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission Facilities Committee forward the above described change order number 2 to the full commission for approval.
I'll second the motion and offer questions. Last we talked about this, they were having a pump delay from the manufacturer, and they gave a scheduled ship date. Did they meet that?
That was a different project, wasn't it?
The Gorman-Rupp, there was a date. Did Gorman-Rupp ship their pumps when they
Right,
said they were going
correct,
to?
so we got the pumps back, all right.
Yeah.
The problem was that pumps got flooded and they
Right.
had to work on it.
Correct. What's associated with the manufacturer's shipping and whatnot, it was mentioned last time, is due to, they had an issue with the dewatering failed,
Right.
and then the dry pit flooded, and the pumps were then shipped back to the manufacturer for that.
Right, but they're mentioning issues here related to supply of equipment. So did Gorman-Rupp meet the projected ship date for these others? Because if they didn't, then that suggests to me that they put a number in there that, it's not going to work.
Right. They did have issues with other materials, the precast. Once the decision was made to go with precast on the wet well, there were some delays that they pointed out with that. And other materials. I know that getting the gravity pipe itself, we actually had to help jump in there and secure some of the gravity pipe for them.
I think what Commissioner Duncan's saying is the way the change orders request is worded, they're blaming it on things that could still be outstanding and would require an additional extension above this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But, well, we addressed that a long time ago.
Right.
So we don't need to be looking at past history so far as a change order. This is, and if they, are the Gorman Rupp pumps back here now? Are they?
They've got the Gorman Rumps back.
The Gorman Rupp shipped out last Friday, and they've already been delivered.
What did they have to do to them?
Basically, everything was replaced, brand new, except for the pump bodies. Pump bodies are fine because they.
Except for the wet end, everything else had to be replaced.
Yes, everything from stem to stern, all electrical, including the leads, everything, every nut and bolt. The only thing that was cleaned, repainted, and reused was the pump.
Are we getting something from the manufacturer telling us all of that, so that?
Yes, sir. We do. We got a pretty thorough report from their.
And the
The pre-tear down and
manufacturer
out of that.
intends to warranty the pumps like regular, correct?
Correct. They're warranting them as new.
That answer your questions, Bob?
It does, and then other thing is just to comment, for this project, we're in fourth quarter. There's not many days left for
Right.
anything else. We're inside of 60 days for the completion, so I hope that they have, I would expect that they have significant momentum that will get them to the finish line on this one, because there's no room beyond this.
I will say that I have seen significant progress out there in the past 60 to 90 days. So they have been
It's a very busy site.
gaining
Very busy.
momentum. They've got multiple crews on site now trying to finish up.
When was the original completion date?
March.
Was in March. It was in March, before change order number 1.
Any other questions, comments?
No, none for
Hearing
me.
none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
We'll move to the discussion section, water pollution control plant flows report. Burrs?
Yes, sir. Despite the fact that it looks like the exact same report as last month, it's not. We just happen to have very consistent months, February and March. And at Academy Creek, 7.8 million gallons going out. TSS was a little higher than what it had been, but still within range. And then we met permit on all of our parameters. Rainfall totals, we had a little bit higher daily rainfall total, but monthly rainfall was not as bad. Kind of shows you with that one day of intensity early in the month, kind of skewed the numbers for 5 or 6 days. Towards the end of the month, the number was much lower than 7.8. Throughout the month, we've dealt with a few mechanical problems we've been dealing with, but able to maintain permanent compliance despite the mechanical issues we've been facing. 95% removal of BOD and TSS at the site. Dunbar Creek, again, early in the month, had a high flow, kind of skewed the numbers on the average for the month, but still, even with the high flow, early part of the month, average was 3.2 million gallons a day, and this is well within permit on all these figures. This plant has been operated very successfully, 98% BOD removal, 99% TSS removal. Remember, we have filters there, so that increases the removal efficiency. And then very consistent production month to month at that facility. And then down at Southport, flows went back to normal. Still don't have a great answer for why they went up in the last 6 months, but we're still working through that process. But the plant handled all the changes well. Effluent concentrations well within permit, 95% BOD removal. That number may seem low compared to the other plants, but when there's only 118 parts coming in, it's kind of hard to get as much out. And then 98% removal on TSS at that facility. We also, in the month of March, transferred oxidation ditches to do maintenance on the existing ditch because we don't need both of them right now. So doing that major of a process change in the middle of the month, still having consistent permit results was a good sign.
Good report, thank you. Next item is the capital project report, Mr. Klein and Mr. Burrs.
You gonna pull up the pictures?
Yep.
There we go.
All right, Commissioners, here is a few updates on the projects that are in motion, under construction. And I will go through these pretty expeditiously, but feel free to pause me at any moment.
You will notice that Ridgewood is not the first one on the list because that one is officially complete.
Yes, Ridgewood has, yes, come off the books, I guess we say. All right, so now we're at Project 702, North Mainland Pump Station, 40, 35, and 36 upgrades. That's just a few pictures of the wet well structure, the influent side of the stations there. And you can see, it gives you an example, especially on the staircases. You see the aggregate shown through the concrete. So a lot of wear and tear over time, and these stations have served a long duty and are time for some attention. So
Is that concrete being repaired on the steps?
it's all being cleaned, and the wet wells,
That was being coated and everything like that, so that'll all be coated. The contractor doing this is currently working on the 4021 project, so he has equipment parked at 4035 right now.
35, yeah.
But he has not
Trucking one.
actually mobilized to the site, but notice to proceed date was March the 22nd.
In tandem with that project, separate contract and separate contractor is the force main extension or the reroute. Also Project 702, we call it Phase 3. That is with TB Landmark out of Jacksonville, Florida. And just a couple pictures here. We had a pre-construction planning meeting out on site on Ogden Lane where there's a gravity sewer extension that's going to be upsized and routed to intercept the existing 20-inch force main. That's the tail end of this project. So some distinct challenges out there with right-of-way and construction limits and whatnot, but working through that with the contractor and the engineer.
They had, notice to proceed date on this was April the 1st. The contractor has not mobilized yet. We have told them no dice thus far, but they have requested a change order due to the change in pipe pricing that we are working through at this moment. Their statement is that the pricing has changed from their supplier since they bid the project. So we have told them they bid the work, they need to do it for the price they bid the work for.
Next project that we just mentioned, Project 703, Pump Station 4003 upgrades. Like we mentioned before, a lot of activity going on out there, so just a few pictures showing the, hopefully you can see some progress going on. You can see down inside the dry pit area where it's all cleaned again now, finishing the piping work down there, upstairs on the first floor, electrical work with the hoist, all in progress. And there is a drone shot from above showing the site, and that gives a good scale of view of the wet well structure that's off to the side here, off to the south side of the building.
I will say the odor control unit is pictured on there. That's just as a frame of reference. That's a 16-foot tall unit. The one that's going at Academy Creek is going to be 30-foot tall. So if you drive by there, it's going to be about twice that size once you go to Academy Creek. That's a 16-foot tall unit there at that site. It's a nice-looking unit.
Yeah, it is a good looking unit. Everything's plumbed on the odor control and all that, essentially ready for a startup when it's time comes for that. All right, Canal Road to Glencoe, 12-inch water main extension. Currently getting some pricing for the couple directional drills that are required on that. One is a directional drill underneath the contractor gate to Fletsy. And I think there's a couple other storm conflicts that we've got to get drilled. So working on that. That's going to be an in-house installation. I know it says May 2021 right there. That's not going to be
Not going to be achieved.
that's not going to be accurate.
We are-
the TBD right there.
The only thing there won't be in-house is there's a couple of sections we have to drill, and we don't have the ability to do the horizontal directional drill in-house, so we're soliciting pricing on that right now.
And that is going to connect a major loop to our system from Canal Road, Harry Driggers intersection, down to Memorial Drive, and right there in front of the airport industrial complex there. Project 804, Magnolia Water Improvements. That is a cooperative project with the City of Brunswick. Still looking to complete that in October of '21 or October of this year. And the contractor installing the water, the city has been utilizing them to get some of the storm infrastructure in place. And so the progress on Phase 2 of the water has been a little bit on hold. We're looking to see that move along here in just a couple of days. So next week, they're supposed to begin again on the water system. Phase 2. But all of Phase 1, which is everything north of Terra Lane, is currently on the new water mains. And
That contractor is sub to the other contractor for doing
they are,
that?
correct, sir. That is, the prime is Hires, and then the sub is Woodard Construction out of Waycross. So Woodard is doing our work, the water line installations. And that's a shot of some of our fellows there on the right-hand side, doing some change-outs and water taps, which we do on all of our mains, all of our potable mains. We do the taps in-house.
So when we put in new water lines, the contractor don't make the taps, we make them.
We make the taps, correct. Distribution really prefers it that way, so they know that the equipment that's used is clean and done correctly, and the coupons are retrieved.
For private development procedures, the developer, the contractor may install the saddle, but we make the actual tap.
Correct, correct. Yeah, we actually cut the hole in the pipe to the water.
So they'll do the excavation and hook the saddle up, but we'll actually come and tap the pipe.
Correct. New construction, new mains, the contractor will build it all, and then chlorinate and test, obviously, after that. So any live mains in use, our team does the physical taps. Pump station 4021, rehab, Sonic Station, as we lovingly call it. Looks a little different than these pictures right here. They now have the screen set up, looks pretty good out there, and the work is fairly concealed behind the curtain. And so far, they've got the existing valve vault demoed, took it down below grade. You can see on this picture here to the right. You never know what you're going to find. I think we kind of knew we'd find this, but anyway, that's the old former station that was there before 4021, as we know it, was built. It's an old below-ground vault-type station. So anyway, that was accommodated with the new the valve vault now sits on top of that. And now they're forming the repair work and whatnot in the floor inside of the wet well. And they'll be coating that here pretty shortly. The pump's retrieved. Here sitting back at Academy Creek right there. That was part of the contract. Contractor removes and delivers those in good order to us. And there's just another shot, kind of panoramic shot of the site there before the screening was put in place. But a lot of activity going on that little bitty site, but they're moving along really well. Project 906, Academy Creek, water pollution control facility.
They are still moving forward with the forming of the walls for the sludge offloading facility and the filters. The sludge offloading facility, they are starting to backfill behind their excavation. They're still pouring concrete on the filters, and they are making preparations for beginning excavation on the influent section. A little bit of a delay there, getting final confirmation of where the primary electrical service came in from the road up to the transformer. So we've got that located, and they should start dewatering any day now on that section of the project. And there's a lot of material sitting on the ground out there if somebody wants to know what we're spending money on.
There's a lot of big material sitting
Yeah,
there.
I see they're good
Pretty
size.
significant excavation just for this box,
Yes.
Yes.
given the terrain and the proximity of groundwater.
Right. There was some good soil came out of that hole too, wasn't there?
It was the old river rock that came out of the bottom of that from
Yeah.
the biofilters.
River Rock. Believe it or not, some pretty good sand came out of there. So we
Yeah.
got all that stockpiled out.
Yeah, we decided to take all that for our own use.
Good plan.
That's it. So, yeah, megalug, you hardly ever see megalogs this size. It's kind of interesting to see. I wanted Jason to jump down in the middle of it and give us a scale of picture. All right, Project 2001, which is the 4105 basin expansion, force main reroute. We spoke a little before about that one. The project that was just, facility is just approved to move to full commission for approval is the lining of several segments in the 36 basin for the upcoming flow that's going to, additional flow that's going to be coming that way. And this is one of them, looking at exit 36, looking towards the northwest there, up 341. And that's where some of the segments of cast are.
Right.
And as Mr. Burrows mentioned before, we challenges with Georgia DOT to do the overland bypassing for that segment.
On the picture on the right there, that's heading into the water production lab, so we may have to relocate them for a day or two because there's really no way to maintain access to that site while they're lining that segment.
I wouldn't think so.
Put that one as about as close to the center of the road as you could get it.
Sure is.
Why Donnie has so much barbed wire around his place, I don't know. And so a few more shots. Some of the segments for rehab do go through the woods. This is back kind of close to the canal, or right just up from the canal, behind pump station 4036. It's off the trestles back there. It's quite nice and peaceful back in that area, but all in preparation of the reroute. Along with that, just it's fair to mention permitting with CSX Railroad. There's a lot of pre-work that goes into this. 2002 Altama Avenue CIPP. Last time we spoke with the project report, we mentioned about some diving activities that were going on. It's really more of a supply to air action than it was a true diving action. But this is what the result of that was. The contractor, IPR, their sub, the liner had some issues, got the camera in there, camera got stuck. Anyway, they pulled in a commercial diving outfit to come in and retrieve the camera. And that's just a couple shots to show you what all. That's on the left side here is the materials that were removed by hand by the diver, and then the brick material and whatnot that they also got out of there at the same time, and the defect. And then there's a shot of part of the dive crew there on the right-hand side holding up the robot. And then there was a question before about pre-CCTV, then post-after. This is an example of why we do that. Commissioner Cook, I believe you asked that, if that's included in the project. Right. So this is the post-repair CCTV video that our contractors are required to provide. And this shows the successful installation of that short liner to make that repair right there. So they did a good job. And this one is just up from the pump station in front of the college.
Right.
We call it 4006.
And that pictures all the things they took out of there?
That's the collection of debris, correct?
That's all the things they took out of there after they had cleaned it and lined it the first time. They had to cut some defects out of the liner, and all those bricks were not in there at the beginning, came from a manhole installation a little further upstream.
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not quite what I'm looking for when I'm scuba diving, but
No, I wouldn't think so.
but relics nonetheless, I guess.
Nothing edible.
Yeah. So, but very interesting. And I
Yeah.
believe they actually even looked. In these projects, you learn what services are out there and what assets are out there. And so now we've made good contact with commercial diving outfit. We know what their capabilities are. They can do a lot of different things. And they've actually already looked at some of our other plant assets to maybe, if we need them in the future for services, we'll know who to call and reach out to.
I think the important thing to note is that even with difficulties in a project like this, the alternative, which is to actually dig up the road and put new pipes in and disrupt neighborhoods and main roads, this is way, way better. I mean, and much more cost effective. So, and obviously it wasn't available years ago. Right. But it is wonderful that we were able to do that, even and overcome the issues that you run into. So.
Right, 2003 CPOM CIPP. So that project is essentially done. All that the repairs and everything are done. Waiting for the final paving to be taking place on North Windward Drive, right there, kind of just north of the clubhouse. Once that's complete, we will be able to close this project out. Not only this project,
But the one
some more
before it.
shots, yeah. But this is where they're doing the pipe bursting. Actually, they had, in the lining world, sometimes the work doesn't turn out. It's very, things have to go correctly, and when they don't, just as you mentioned before, you got to dig them up. That's what they had to do here. They had to dig down and do a point repair, actually repair the segment of pipe where the material wrinkled due to something, and sometimes there's just no way to fix that other than digging down on it. That's what they did here. But going in and doing the final paving, we hope next week. That'll wrap that project up. And once that's done, well, I guess we have them tied together here, Altama and CPOMs. Once that's done, we'll be able to close out both projects.
Yeah, we'll be, assuming they get the paving done next week, as indicated, there will be a final deductive change order brought for the May meeting for that, because we have those extra bid items in there as needed work, but to balance the contract at the end.
Right, Coastal Club Apartments, Project 2005, we call it Pump Station 4059. That is also, it's the last component of that comprehensive agreement with Coastal Club. And our guys have, in systems pumping and maintenance, have prepped the site for bypassing, and the contractor's going to mobilize and assume control of the site next week.
That cover over the control buildings, have we started putting that on pump stations now? The little
That-
roof?
That's
We typically do, for our installations of new panels, we will put a structure over that, so that someone,
Seen it on most of our stations.
most of them it's not, but for some of the newer ones that we've done in-house, we will do that simply because no one really likes working in an electrical panel when it's raining. So try to have a little bit of a sun shield and some rain protection there.
That's correct, yeah, the pads around for the guys to be working on when they're working at the station. So, correct. As Mr. Burrows said, yes, roofs are now included in the standard. Okay, Bergen Woods, we did discuss this before with the comprehensive agreement. Look forward to those revisions and hopefully getting that one approved by the full commission tomorrow. This is the routing of that force main. It's 2,500 or so feet, I want to say. Basically from the safety complex, which you can see in the green line just represents the routing of that force main.
So like we were talking about earlier, other than the section that goes underneath the spur, you could temporarily bypass it to get the animal control facility online if necessary. But of course, we'd still have to make the shot under the spur.
Thank you.
Okay, Sea Palms East Waterline Rehab, in-house project.
We are getting pricing on the two last connections there, and also working with Glynn County to determine what may be available as far as construction methods to make those crossings.
And the crossings you're talking about is doing Frederica Road?
Palm and Windward across Frederica to tap the main that comes down the other side.
Okay.
Okay, this one is still on the list, Oak Grove Force Main and Pump Station 4132 improvements. The scope's changed a little bit on this one. It's no longer 4132 improvements, just Oak Grove Force Main, because they're going to manifold in on Oak Grove Island Road. Developer's still going through permitting on the development itself, and the engineer's working with us to get a final force main construction plan approved. This is going to open up sewer service on Oak Grove Island, actually, so. Prince Street elevated storage tank rehab. If you've been by the site on Prince Street recently, you've probably seen the curtain has largely disappeared, and you'll see some cables and whatnot still there, but they're actively wrapping that project.
The tank
up.
is now white instead of rusted, so it's a good start.
Yeah, it's looking great. There's a shot inside the, when you look at these from the ground, they look large, they really do. But man, from the inside.
I was going to say, that ladder looks pretty long there.
Yeah. So this is a 3/4 million gallon tank up in the air.
Not a good spot for one that's afraid of heights.
No, definitely not. And that's not one of our guys,
No,
No, sir.
no, sir.
which is good.
This is one of Tank Pro's subcontractors here working. And, you can imagine they have to be very careful in what they're doing.
Have we approved the logo installation and the where it's going to be and everything?
Yes, sir.
And they gave us a rendering of that, right?
Yes,
For both ours and the cities?
yes.
That's correct. There's, now you have your different valves and whatnot, operating valves at the base of most tanks that help control the filling and everything like that. And we did go ahead and have the contractor rehab those for us, sandblast them, get those guys painted up, look great. Look over to the right, you see the reel, just a little bit of insight on how they do this stuff. It's a hydraulic winch, and the cables go up through the center of the stem, or the riser, and then they come up through the top, and then that's how they actually hang the curtains and move things around.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting operation, a lot going on. And just of note, so the residents been really accommodating to us in this area. Well, I don't think we've received a single complaint.
I haven't
Prince
heard
Street.
anything.
And, yeah, really pleased with the community's acceptance of the work. Demery Street, elevated storage tank on St. Simon's Island. And so that was still planned up to wrap up here early summer. And you can see some of the intermediate coats going on the outside. Now, we didn't blast this one down to bare metal like we did Prince Street. It didn't need it. It just needed to be pressure washed and cleaned. And also there's a couple shots from the inside. You can see the
Now, the inside did get blasted to bare metal.
oh,
right?
excuse me, yeah. The outside did not. The inside did get blasted to bare metal and then rebuilt back up here. And that's the zinc-rich primer coat. You see it's a kind of green paint. And they also strike all the seams and welds and everything like that and hit those extra heavy.
Did they take off the communication equipment on top?
There was some movement. The communication folks did move some things around in preparation for this.
They didn't pull them all the way down and set up a new temporary structure. What they did was coordinate when they needed to be in there to remove it temporarily while they got to that section. That was the antenna providers.
Didn't require any more welding on top of the tank?
That was the antenna provider's preference, and Tank Pro has been accommodating, so.
That's it. The only thing we're really modifying on top of the tank as far as structure-wise or pertinence-wise is the top antenna. I think there's the FAA light that we got to do a
Yeah.
little bit of, we got to improve, so that's pretty minor. That was part of the contract, was included. There's an intermediate coat on there you can see inside the riser section of the ladder, and you can imagine you got to be tied off at all times on these ladders. That's a long drop down. There's no landings or anything on these ladders. Again, you got to be really safe. Okay, pump station 4002 force main replacement. That's currently in design work. That's off Arnold Road.
About 90% designed. We are, given the way pipe pricing has gone and the upcoming summer season, we are looking at when the best time to bid that project out is going to be. Likely will be bid out in the fall to take advantage of the slower season.
Very busy area, but a needed force main improvement. Arco area water and sewer extensions. Spoke a little bit about this having this on the approved capital project plan. Arco, we're working on getting 90% back from our engineer of record there. And similar type project, water and sewer extension and community road, well, sewer expansion, excuse me, community road. Service a lot of the business district in that area. We've got, we're actually actively putting together bid documents right now for that project. It'll soon be ready for bidding. Wrapping up permitting for GDOT. Galvanized replacements in-house, system-wide, self-performed. Again, we just love showing the carnage that comes out of the ground for that project. Good pile of scrap that'll go back for, I guess we'll get, scrap. Scrap value for
It's about all it's good for.
yeah. So, and then another shot just inside of a piece of cast pipe there. You can see what that looks like, the tuberculation inside. That's just what happens to iron-based pipe over time. Pump station 2022, or excuse me, project 2022, pump station 4118 and 119 upgrades, in-house project. System Pumping's done a really good job on this. I know they've had 4118, they're still working through some pump.
119 is completed.
Yeah.
118, they've got to, the concrete providers are running a little busy right now, so they're having to get some concrete poured out there. That's been delayed a few days, and then they've got some minor punch list items. But you can see they've done some grading work and dressing work there, so that should be done in the very near future. But 119 is running. It's been that way for 2 months now. That portion of the project is complete.
Both these stations service ongoing construction. There's a lot of construction going on off the 99 corridor. Bergen Woods off-site force main. We spoke a lot about that project today. A little shot of the animal control as it's coming along.
What's the date that they're going to move in on the animal control new facility?
They're saying June.
In June?
They're saying June.
Uh-huh.
So we'll accommodate them. You know, nothing that, you know, that will impede them from coming online.
Right, yeah.
But just the pointing out the urgency of getting that force main in the ground, ready to accommodate the new pump station upgrade that we're doing. That's critical.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I would think that the combination of, if that is online, if they're open, and then there was some sort of emergency where the Emergency Operations Center, that would be a point where, you know, there would be something to address there.
We will make sure that whatever is necessary is addressed out there.
I'm sure.
so looking forward to seeing Glynn County. I know it's going to be a really great project for them once completed. Looking forward to the open house on that, checking it out.
Yeah.
Good cause. Meter replacements. I'll let Mr. Burris speak on that one.
Yes, we are getting the number as of Friday here. We have replaced 3,674 meters as of Friday. Majority of these have been 5/8 and 1-inch meters in residential areas. We have replaced 14 meters 2-inch and greater, with I think 10 of those being Board of Education properties that we took advantage of the spring break holiday to replace their meters. So we're starting to see some of the larger meters, and we have to, of course, work with the property owner depending on what's going on at the site. But they are making very good progress there. We've got the data. We're having a little bit of problem with the data. The first month's data is dumping all at one time into this system, which is fine for billing purposes, but we don't have the interval data that's being collected until the second month. But we're working through that with Neptune on how that data is being brought over. But installations are going pretty smoothly. There's some questions about we have a yoke bar set up where they tie off of the main line at. We're looking at how best to address that, including a new curb stop backflow meter box setup. Trying to standardize that across our entire system, because as we have grown over the years, different standards were in place, and so trying to make it a common setup amongst all of our residential installs.
Are those meters, are we able to read them back here in the office now?
Yes, yes, sir. We can, at any point, go on the Neptune 360 system, click a button, and have we can get individual readings from any one meter or all the readings from the AMI meters at one time if we want
So
to.
it doesn't come through antennas, it comes through
It comes through antennas
To the cloud.
to the cloud on the AMI
And
structure.
then we access it from the
Right.
cloud.
It's all,
So when the new meters are coming on, they dump everything at once.
essentially, they're being activated on day one, and they're recording the interval data. But when it uploads that first round of data, it's showing 30 days worth of usage on day one.
Right.
So it's recording the interval data, it's just not tying it into the system correctly. That's not impacting billing. The billings are
Right.
correct. It's just that graph for the first month's usage.
What you're really trying to determine is this a leak situation or not?
Right, so if someone says that their bill's high that first month, we don't have that breakdown of where their usage was. It's just like the normal bills we have now, which is 30 days worth of usage at one time. So we're working through that.
Sounds like something that might be expected in a project.
These, minor inconveniences that go along with a
Right,
project
yeah.
this size.
Just point out also a benefit we see in planning and construction. Of course, we maintain all the mapping and GIS. Well, every one of these new meters go on the ground, there's survey grade GPS in them, and they're down, giving us that data. So it's great, because we're updating our map with our meters along the way
So
with this project.
while most of the meter boxes are fairly easy to find, you go out in the field, I will say a lot, there is a percentage of property owners that decide those are great areas for landscaping to occur.
They hold mulch really well.
I'm sure.
So, 6 or 8 inches of mulch on the top of it after years, and it's kind of hard to find the meter box. So
How about one of those things you use on the beach looking for metal? Will that work?
we do, we use a metal detector. Some of the boxes that have went in over the years have been composite with no actual metal in them.
Oh, whoops.
Those are a little harder to find with the metal. The old cast iron boxes, you can hit those pretty good with a metal
I
detector.
was going to say that's one way.
And sometimes you'll find one with a metal detector, and you'll get a few shovels full of dirt out of the ground and just assume you're in the wrong spot because you should have hit something by now, and you just, eventually you'll get there.
So that's the end of the picture report here, but I'm happy to answer any questions or anything else or any other projects. off the spreadsheet. Thank you.
Are we gonna go over this list at all?
Which list?
The list of the projects,
Oh, sir.
pictures? Because I have a question on the FEMA hazard thing.
Yes, sir.
Have we gotten the full amount from them for the generators that we're gonna be bidding also, since we did not get it for the transfer switches?
We have, I forget the exact number, we have a more appropriate number approved for generators. We haven't got the bids back yet to see if it's going to be the full amount, but that number should be more accurate. We still do not have official approval for the 67 additional transfer switches, that third project. What we're being told, that's likely to come after January of '22, but the first two are moving along.
Magnolia Water Improvements, what's the status? What is that? Is it 50% complete or what?
Yes, five of the 7 roadways have been completed. Unfortunately, the 2 that haven't are the 2 longest ones, so I would say 50 to 60% complete in there. And all the customers on the mains, the roadways that have had the new mains are on the new main. And unfortunately, a couple of them have noticed leaks on their side once we've tied the new mains and services in.
How's that gonna be addressed?
Once they get it fixed, we give them a leak adjustment. A lot of times we'll notice it pretty quickly because you tie the new main in and it becomes evident that there's a leak all of a sudden, and we'll actually notify them, hey, we tied you in. The increased pressures we're getting with the new pipes, it appears you have a leak, and then they'll get it taken care of, and we'll get that leak adjustment process for them very quickly.
Some of those galvanized services?
A lot of the ones that are leaking are galvanized services.
Yeah.
Now, some of them, unfortunately for them, but fortunately for the project, have already replaced their galvanized with PVC, and those seem to be doing just fine.
Y'all got any questions?
No more
Good.
questions.
I want to mention, for the next meeting, the Georgia Rural Water Association is scheduled to meet, and is scheduled to start on May 11th, 12th, and 13th. And we have our facilities meeting and finance meeting scheduled for the 12th. And then our regular meeting is on the 13th. And I would propose that we move those 2 meetings to the 19th and 20th.
They're currently scheduled for the 19th and the 20th.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Typically, we take full advantage, and we will take as much advantage as we can of the GRWA conference because of it being on Jekyll Island. They are limiting the number of people that are able to go this year, but we are going to get as many of our licensed personnel to attend that as we can and still maintain service, so that they can get recertification points for their operator's license. And they get exposure to the new technologies that people are having these days. So,
Any commissioners have any other comments?
No, thank you.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.